Break Ranks is presented in association with Bands of America's Sun Safety partner, Outrun the Sun. This is the podcast helping to create, provide, and expand
winners in life.
Positively life-changing experiences through music for all.
Go for it!
This is the podcast that encourages everyone to
Break Ranks!
This week on Break Ranks,
I don't think there's anything as powerful as music in this whole world.
There's no better witness to that than my guest in this episode, Bands of America Hall of Famer and longtime band director at Utah's American Fork High School, John Miller, now retired almost a decade.
I really highly recommend retirement.
John shares how taking American Fork to BOA events impacted the school forever.
And Bands of America and Music for All, wow, what they do is unbelievable.
Yeah, what's unbelievable is how John Miller has brought together music educators across his state.
The family of band directors have come together like they've never done before.
But be warned, there can't be band without tears.
There was no applause.
Some tears of sadness.
There was just dead silence in the entire BYU stadium of just emotion. You could hear people sobbing.
But mostly, you know.
Now, I have never seen tears jettisoned straight out of kids' eyes in my life. But, I mean, it was a moment of pure joy.
Lots of pride and joy to share with John Miller as we enter the final stretch of the Bands of America 2025 championship season on Break Ranks. Coming to you direct from the announcer's perch, one of the best perches in pageantry, I'm Dan Potter, and this is Break Ranks. We are at the Alamo Dome, where myself and fellow BOA announcer John Pollard are announcing the Texas State Marching Band Championships this week, and we'll be here for San Antonio. You can hear the rambunctious crowd in the background. We will be here in San Antonio for the BOA Super Regional this coming weekend. Of course, we have reached the end of Bandtober, which means marching band excellence across the country is peaking. And like the leaves in the trees, all that color and beauty will soon be just a memory. So let's savor every minute of it. Here are your BOA Regional Championship Week 7 results. Let's start in the east and work our way west through the three regionals held this past weekend. We began at Cass High School in White, Georgia, and BOA's Alex Quintero.
In first place, with a score of 87.0, the 2025 Bands of America Southeastern Regional Champion, the Catawba Ridge High School Marching Band from Fort Mill, South Carolina.
After finishing second in finals at the Carolina Regional earlier this month, Catawba Ridge High School swept all captions and claimed gold in finals in Georgia. They also took their second Class 2A championship of the season. Another South Carolina school, Nation Ford High School, was second in finals. Georgia's Lambert High School was third. In prelims, the other medalists were 1A Russell County High School of Kentucky, 3A Harrison High School from Georgia, and 4A Georgia's Lambert High School. Next, up to the mountains, Moscow, Idaho, and the Kibbe Dome, home of the University of Idaho Vandals, where finals assembled some of the finest marching bands in the Northwest. It was Idaho's own Nick Costella delivering the results.
And in first place, with a score of 82.3, the 2025 Bands of America Idaho Regional Champion, the Ridgeline High School Marching Band from Liberty Lake, Washington.
The Ridgeline Regiment leading the all-Washington State top three in finals, taking all three captions and finishing about 2.5 points ahead of second place Cheney and third place Mount Spokane High Schools. In prelims, Idaho's Fruitland High took the 1A crown. Ridgeline topped the pack in 2A. Washington's A.C. Davis took home the 3A medallions, and the 4A champion is Idaho's Mountain View High School. Finally, to the Golden State and Eagle Stadium on the campus of Etiwanda High School in Rancho Cucamonga, California, where Charlotte Victor settled a battle of the best in the West.
In first place, with a score of 90.92, the 2025 Bands of America California Regional Champion, the Vista Murrieta High School Marching Band, Murrieta, California.
Vista Murrieta finished second to Utah's American Fork High School in the 4A prelims contest, but managed to summon a strong performance in finals to top the Utah school, with California's Ayala High School taking Best Visual Performance to finish third in the evening show. The other prelims class medallions were awarded to Pinecrest Academy of Nevada Cadence in 1A, California's Gar High School in 2A, and Nevada's Foothill High School in 3A. I am looking forward to this conversation with one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet and a Bands of America Music for All Hall of Famer who has done more for instrumental music in the state of Utah, I think, maybe than anybody ever. Vocal music, a different story. There's the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. But when it comes to instrumental music, there's John Miller, retired after 30 years as band director at American Fork High School and 40 years, I think, total as a band director. One of the most influential voices on the instrumental music scene is my guest this time at Break Ranks. John Miller, welcome.
I'm excited to be here. I just love all the stuff that you guys do, and I'm just glad to be a part of this thing.
It's good to reconnect, man. You retired in 2016. I told you before we started recording, if my eyes are red, it's because I just finished watching the 2016 tribute that your alumni bands and your school and community did for you. The concert, the gifts, all the tributes that were spoken and played. And then your speech at the very end was just heartrending. Tell me, just if you can, summarize what those 30 years at American Fork High School meant to you personally.
Wow. How can I say that in a few words? 30 years at American Fork High School. I've looked back on those 30 years as the greatest times of my life. I mean, to take it from a good program to what I consider to be a little bit better program and moving on and advance it. But just the connections I've made. I mean, even now, we'll go out and eat or something, and parents will grab me. Oh, Mr. Miller. And I try to remember who their kids were and connect with them. And usually it's funny because I can usually remember when they tell me their name, I can remember what instrument they played, but I sometimes can't remember the name. But all the connections we've made over the years with the kids and the trips we've done and the music we did, the marching band, the concert band, the jazz band, it's just the complete package. I am a blessed man to have been here for 30 years. It's been a phenomenal experience for me and my wife.
It's been, 9 years since you retired. What you been doing in the meantime?
Well, first off, I really highly recommend retirement. It's a great event, but it's also a myth. I keep busy. I kind of organize and run a community band called the Wasatch Winds, and I run a community jazz band called the Wasatch Show Band that has 4 lead singers out front. So I keep my music fix in that way so I can keep doing that. I run around, do a lot of clinics with bands. In fact, just last night I was up at an area high school, working with their band, giving some of my thoughts and everything. I do a lot of that. I do a little bit of judging, but I don't do much judging anymore because they kind of hired me as a Utah Music Educators marching band chair and marching band coordinator. So I'm blessed to be able to go out and hire all the judges for all 7 of our shows, take care of the judges, be in the booth with the judges, and just keep those amazing connections. But when I do get to go out and judge, it's just a wonderful experience. But I keep myself busy that way. I have a lot of family. I've got 6 kids and I think 25 grandkids. And I just had my first great grandkid. So, they keep me busy too. And they all live within 20 miles of me. So anytime there's a birthday or anything, we get together and have a fun time. So I keep myself very, very busy. But I'm loving every minute and there's no pressure whatsoever. It's great.
As a grandparent of 6 myself, and all 6 are at least a 2.5 hour drive away, if not a 4 or 5 hour drive away for the others. I'm really jealous of that, John, that you get to be around 25 grandkids and 1 great grandkid. That's phenomenal. You could start your own wind band with just grandkids at some point.
Yeah, a small marching band, maybe. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
As they were growing up, my kids were growing up, I told them, I said, I only ask one thing, that no one moves more than like half hour away from our house. Oh. Just jokingly making that comment. And my wife and I, Pam, have looked back on this and say, wow, they actually listened to a few things I said. So everybody's close. It's a really cool blessing to have them so close.
How many of those 6 kids took up an instrument?
If they wanted to live in my house and eat food, they all did.
Who was the standout?
I have a couple of real star trumpet players. I have some color guard people, a French horn person, clarinet, a flute, a little bit of everything. So they all loved it. They all stayed right in there through their high school years. So it was great.
I've talked to other band directors about this, and you and I both know this, that there are a lot of band couples who don't have kids and who really, if you ask them, they'll say, well, I've got 250 kids that I work with every day.
Yeah.
And that's one way of looking at it. Let's put it that way. But then I have, band directors like you, Matt Harloff, so many others, Jeremy Earnhardt, who have kids in band at the same time they're director. And it's, I don't know, the bonding that takes place between parent and child when they're both in the same band together, one as a director and one as a performer. There's something special about that. How did it work for the Miller family?
It's been wonderful. One of them still plays in my Washington Wind Symphonic Band, so that's awesome. It's just kind of crazy because when I first had my kids in the band, I mean, I always thought I was a nice band director, but I remember coming home and having a meal around the table, and one of my kids would say, "Mom, you wouldn't believe what Dad said today," or something like that, or what he did. And what did I do? What did I say? And so it kind of made me realize that I'm teaching other people's kids, and I have to be a little kinder and gentler and more loving and compassionate. And when I had my own, it really kind of transformed my teaching. I hope I became nicer, but I always thought I was okay, but I think I became nicer when I had my own kids.
When you started at American Fork, I know it was just you and your wife, but the program grew, as you said, over those 30 years a lot. Tell me what the band program at American Fork was like when you first arrived and what you saw as your biggest challenge at that point.
It's kind of a crazy thing because when I came from Blackfoot, Idaho. I taught in Pocatello at Highland High School for a while, but I was currently at Blackfoot High School, team teaching the high school and the junior high with my friend. And we were really developing a strong program there. And it kind of created some tension between the administration, or should I say the school board, and the athletic community, because we were winning and they were not. And it created some tension. So they kind of put roadblocks in our way. So the last year I was there, when I was at Blackfoot, we came up against American Fork. And we beat them at some marching band competition. And I think that's one of the reasons that Don Peterson, who was teaching there now, who then went on to teach at Brigham Young University, invited me and my guy I was team teaching with, Alan Tripp, to come down and interview for the job. And we did. And I didn't think I had a prayer. Alan was he taught a little bit longer than me. He was much better looking and, dynamic and everything. And I was just a little bozo guy, I thought. And we both auditioned with a whole bunch of people. And I was shocked when the principal came back the next morning and said, "We'd like to offer you the job." Now, the sad part is I turned it down 3 times. He said, we can pay this much. Of course, I went home and looked at it. I can't afford to move down there. I'm making less than I was there. So I told him, I said, "I can't do this." He said, "Well, give me a day here." So we went back, found some committees, found some other stuff, some more stipends, and gave me another number. And I turned it down again. And then he came back, I think, a second time and with a whole other package kind of for me. And I said, "Well, let me bring my wife down one more time and let's walk around through American Fork, see what I think." And I remember walking down through the halls of American Fork and everybody was just happy. And I don't know, it just was a special experience. And I went out in the car with my wife and I said, "I think we need to do this." So, they were bending over backwards to help me make it happen. So they did, and we did, and it was traumatic. I'm not sure anybody that moves from a school to another school or something, but I remember stopping at the Idaho line with my whole family. I had about 3 of them at that time, singing the Idaho song by the Idaho road sign. And it was just kind of an emotional thing, leaving, because I'm kind of an Idaho boy. And all of a sudden now I'm a Utah person. And I have never regretted it or looked back a drop. The blessings that's come to our life and the experiences we've had has been unbelievable that I could have never had even close up in Idaho. So glad to be here.
So what was the program like your first year?
I was shocked. When I first came here, we had under 90 kids, and my band was a lot bigger than Blackfoot at that point. I had 9 trumpets. I walked into my first concert band class, and there were 21 saxophones. I was shocked. And so I had a lot of rebuilding and a lot of begging kids to switch instruments and do different things. And it was small. We were placing 3rd and 4th in the state. At that time, it was Sherry Manning and the Skyview Band was the top of the heap. They'd won the Summer Grand National thing, and she was my mentor. When I first came down, we had collaborated when I was in Idaho, we created the Mini Dome Marching Band competition because the state event in Utah had been canceled because of silly snow, like 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And Sherry and I got together and created this Mini Dome Marching Band thing, and it's still going. In fact, I just judged there 2 weeks ago. But I was kind of shocked that I had such a small program. And one of the touching parts of it, I'll never forget this, a drum major who I had not selected came up to me and said, "Mr. Miller, we don't have any tubas in the band, none in the marching band." I said, "Yeah, we don't." He said, "Well, I play tuba. I think you could use a tuba more than a drum major. Is that correct?" How many drum majors would say that? And so he switched. He wasn't a drum major. He went and played tuba the whole year. I still know him. He lives in the area, and I still just bowed out to him every time I see him for making that kind of a decision. But it was a small program, and we slowly build it up.
Did you face the same kind of resistance at American Fork that you had faced in Idaho, as growth happened, or was it encouraged instead?
I'm not sure that administrators even care that much about having a large band program. But I was blessed with an amazing principal, and he supported me all the way. He was the one that offered me the job in the first place.
Yeah.
And he was extremely supportive, and he wanted to do anything he could to help us grow. And I remember when I first got here, I said, you know, I know a little bit about marching band, but not as much as I needed to know down here in this area. So I remember going to the Bands America Summer Symposium like 2 or 3 years in a row. And then after that, every other year for 3 or 4 years. That's where I first made my connection in Bands America. And I'll never forget, I took my wife one year and I came home and somebody, I wish I could remember who it was, had told me, now on the plane home, put together your list of everything you need to develop a program. Money's not even considered. Just what do you need to make your program where it should be? And so my wife and I sat and we developed this real long list. You know, I want 80% of my kids taking private lessons. I want a staff, because at that time it was just me and a color guard person. That was the staff. Oh. And we compiled this list, and I came home and they told me, you know, share it with your boosters, share it with your principal. And I did all that stuff. And it was funny because about 15 years later, I found that list, and we had accomplished every single thing that I'd wanted to do, except for one. I wrote on there, I like to perform at Midwest, but in the ensuing years, I said, you know, I don't need that on my file. I'm just going to work on my own program here. I don't need to go out and do that kind of stuff. But it was just neat to see that list. And I encourage directors all the time, make that list and just slowly tick it off, make sure things are happening.
That's inspirational, John. I think a lot of people do make lists, but they don't necessarily take them to their administration, take them to their boosters and share them and get them involved. That may be the next step that's really critical, yeah?
Yeah. I know my boosters have been a key part of American Fork. When I came, there was a small booster group. It was basically a bunch of band moms, maybe 5 or 6 of them in the band room would meet. And I remember I was out with my color guard person loading sousaphones on top of school buses, just her and I. And some band dad, a guy named Dan Adams, who he's big in the BOA business now, but he came up to me and said, you guys could use some help, couldn't you? I said, yeah, we could. Well, he created the band dads. And the next thing I know, we got 20 or 30 band dads and 20 or 30 band moms, and we moved the meeting to the evening instead of in the afternoon, and it just took off. The parents just fell in love with us and everything. It was like a firestorm.
What was the first moment? I don't know if it was a BOA contest or a concert on stage, but surely there was a moment when John Miller said, yeah, we're here. We got to where I wanted to be. You told me about the list, but there had to be kind of a moment in performance, yeah?
I felt real good about the jazz band. I felt real good about the concert band. We came from 1 band up to like 3 pretty quick. You know, we were getting superior ratings and we were doing good things there, and the jazz band was doing great. But I'm kind of a competitive guy, and marching band, I'm a lover of that, because there's any other venue that can motivate kids as much as that, I don't think, and do as much for them. So I remember I mentioned Sherry Manning and Skyview. I was talking to her on the phone once a week, like, Sherry, what do I do here? What would you do here? I got this situation. What would you do? And they were always winning. They had never lost in, 20, 30 years or something. And at that time, there was a band called Woods Cross. They stopped marching a few years ago. And Davis, and then us. We were always like 4th. And it took us a year, and then pretty soon we were 3rd. And next year, we're 2nd. And then one competition in the middle of the year, we actually, I didn't use the word beat, but outscored Mountain Crest. Of course, Sherry calls me up and congratulated me like crazy. But I'll never forget the pressure I felt at that point and how ecstatic the kids were. Then I felt the pressure. I remember sitting in the faculty room, laying on a couch, because all the directors then, that was before text and I think probably before email, they were calling me, John, you're going to do it again Saturday. You're going to do it again Saturday. Because it was just like AF now, everybody wants to beat American Fork. We were always wanting to, play on the same level as Sherry. And I just remember that intense pressure. But eventually we came, so we were consistently winning first place. And then probably the other thing that really was amazing to me is, I can't remember how many years I was here, 10 years, and we went to our first Grand Nationals. I was just hoping to make semis. I was a happy person if we made semis. We were just a little band out here in Utah, and we said, okay, we're going to make semis. And we got there, and we did a great job. That was the year I had like 9 trumpets in the all-state band, and we had some amazing players. And, we did our prelims, we made our semis, and we're sitting in the stands. And of course, I've got about 20 bands on my hand that I know beat us handily. And then I think Cam was the one that held it at the very end, but then Dr. Tim was making announcements. Whereas Dr. Tim, I've always held this against him. And the last band on the field tonight in finals is from American Fork. Now, I have never seen tears jettisoned straight out of kids' eyes in my life. But I mean, it was a moment of pure joy from everybody. And I'm sure lots of bands have experienced that when they make the finals. But
the American Fork High School Marching Band.
But that was a moment. It really was a moment. I mean, word went back to Utah. There was a big state competition that same day, and they were announcing that the American Fork would make finals. And I don't know, it was just an amazing experience.
What year was that again?
Oh man, 95?
95.
I think it was 95.
And since then, I mean, American Fork has become iconic in our activity in the Bands of America circuit. When I see American Fork is going to be at Grand Nationals, I kind of assume they're, if not in finals, they're going to be really close to being in finals at Grand Nationals. But beyond just American Fork, bands in Utah in general have improved a great deal in the last 10 to 20 years. Can you talk about just the Utah band scene in general and the health of it right now?
Yeah, like I say, I'm fortunate to be the marching band chair and competition coordinator in Utah. And we kind of started a bandmasters organization here in Utah, and that helped a lot. But I have seen, and I talked to every one of the judges, some of what I call the regular judges who come every 3 or 4 years and for years and years have been here. The improvement has just been unbelievable. I've been a big promoter of that. I'm trying to encourage every director here. I work at Brigham Young University now and teaching student teachers and stuff. And I tell everybody that I talk to or when I do a clinic, you know, it's nice to go to Midwest, but what you need to do is go to the summer symposium of Bands America. That's where I got fired up and learned about things. And I think several people have. They've gone to that. They've come back. They've got it's like me. For probably 10 years, I wrote my own drill at American Fork. Even when we made finals, I wrote the drill. And I thought, you know, at some point I'm looking at my children, my own kids, and thinking, you know, I'm wasting all my time in my office trying to write drill for one band, and I'm missing all these kid opportunities. And there are people who do it a lot better than me for a living. So when I did that, it took a little while. But I think a lot of bands in Utah now are doing that. I think they're going out from their local areas, their local, you know, homegrown people. Well, nothing wrong about that. But I mean, they're finding really top-notch people to write the drill, to write the music, to be show coordinators. And it's really coming on. And they're all gunning for American Fork. I mean, the one I think the closest right now is Westlake. You know, they're just doing phenomenal. And Randy Brady, the director, is a good friend of mine. When he was teaching in Idaho, he would come down on his breaks and just hang out with me all day long at our rehearsals. And we'd go to lunch, and he was just trying to. And then with finally they had an opening at Westlake, and boy, I recommended him. I said he needed to get down here, and he did. So, but I think there's a lot of high-level things. We've done some organization in Utah. We created a real good handbook, a policy manual. We created a marching band committee. We have committee meetings 3 or 4 times a year, not a lot. But if there's new proposals, there's a structure where they can make proposals for a policy change or a classification change or whatever they want to do. And we put it in the hands of the directors. So it's not me or it's not just a couple people calling the shots. It's the directors. So this little committee, the marching band committee, can make decisions and make thoughts and ideas. And then they put it out to for every division, we have 2 committee members. So then they go out and talk to their people. And then we have a group Zoom meeting with all the directors. And then when we have our state conference in St. George, it's not snowing down there. That's why we have it down there in February. We all get together. All the band directors get together and talk. And through the bandmasters now, we bring in people and talk about how to develop your bands, not just marching band, but, you know, jazz band, concert band, everything. So I think the family of band directors have come together like they've never done before. I used to go to shows in Utah, and every show had different sheets, different rules, different timing, everything. It was crazy. And when we first started organizing this, we unified it. We kind of took the best of the Band America sheets and the best of the Western Band Association sheets and compiled them into our own. Right now, our next level, we're thinking of just paying the money and going to BOA sheets. We'd like to do that, but that's not going to be up to the directors. But I think we've got a real family of band directors now that are making some good decisions and putting some good bands on the field.
BOA Hall of Famer John Miller on his darkest days with American Fork High School and how he and his students overcame that trauma. After a word from Bands of America's Sun Safety partner, Outrun the Sun. As we continue our Sun Safety chat with dermatologist Dr. Christy Waterman, this time one of the more controversial skin cancer prevention topics.
There is quite a debate between mineral sunscreens and chemical sunscreens. Something is better than nothing. We know for 100% that some of the radiation from the sun is carcinogenic. We have definitive proof for that. So we know that overexposure is a problem and directly leads to cancer. We also know that the skin is an active organ and it absorbs some things and doesn't absorb other things. If you are looking for the safest sun protective measures, I would say avoidance, seeking shade, UPF clothing. Clothing's not going to absorb into your skin. There's not going to be any issues for that. Personally, I choose to use mineral sunscreens, usually zinc oxide-based mineral sunscreens, because I know that those are going to offer me good protection. However, sometimes those are not as elegant as the chemical sunscreen options. So I would rather someone use something rather than nothing. And a lot of the chemical sunscreens go on a little nicer. They're a little more sheer or, not as maybe thick and leaving the white cast. But again, we're always making advances in sunscreen formulations and options that are available. So I think there's a lot of tools in the toolbox. You just have to make sure that you're using several and using them appropriately.
Our thanks to Outrun the Sun for being Bands of America's Sun Safety partner.
Joining us from American Fork, Utah, please welcome the American Fork High School Marching Band.
John Miller is obviously and justifiably proud of the way he's brought together band directors in his state, and that made me curious. Well, speaking of family of band directors, do you have any idea how many of your former students are now music educators?
That's the coolest thing. Last I counted was about 20.
Wow.
There's about 20 directors in the Utah area, a couple in California that came through our program. I just love it. I love it when I can sit there and watch the bands perform. And of course, they bring me in sometimes to do a clinic with them and things like that. I feel like the old guy coming in, but it's just really a fun thing. But I'm just happy that I imparted something to them that kind of made them want to do this crazy career we're in, which is the best career on the planet. Working with kids and working with music. And it just does my heart good to see those kids doing that.
John, I hope you don't mind, but I do want to talk about what I'm sure was probably the darkest moment for the American Fork program. And I want to do it not out of salaciousness, but out of maybe the hope that band directors who face similar tough trials like this in the future, maybe there's some words of wisdom that you can impart to them. I'm talking about 2009. The band was coming back from what I believe was an invitational in the Pocatello area.
Yep.
And there was a horrible bus crash that killed your woodwind caption head, Heather Christensen. Obviously, a horrible tragedy. How did you as a band family get through that? And just what are your thoughts when you look back on that moment?
Yeah, that is definitely the darkest moment of my life. She was not just my caption head, she was my assistant director. It was the first time we'd ever convinced the administration to hire an assistant for me.
Mm.
And she had been my previous drum major. She went on to the University of Utah, became the drum major there, taught at a couple area high schools. And then I convinced our principal that we needed a woodwind specialist. Not that we were trying to become like Texas, but what they got is pretty amazing.
Yes.
And at that time, I already had a full-time percussion guy, and that was great. But when I got Heather, it was special. I mean, she was an angel. The kids loved her. They called them Heatherisms. Everything she said, they would write on the board. And when we had the accident, I mean, the whiteboard in the front of the band room you couldn't even find an empty spot of no ink because they'd all written the things that she had said. But when that night happened, I was driving behind the bus because I just had another dinner. The kids were all eating someplace, and I was eating with my wife's family. And I was about half a mile behind the bus when Jeremy Arnold was my junior high director, but was my assistant director at the high school, calls me up and said, John, the bus just went off the road. And I, of course, going 120, 130 miles an hour until I got there. And the time I got there, some of the kids were still piling out of the bus, and we helped them get out of the bus. And, we got another bus came, and one of the area bands called their bus company and actually had another bus come, not even asking us, to help get the kids, taken care of. And we got them all on the bus, and I had the horrible thing of, because the kids on the other buses didn't know what had happened, but my assistant, Jeremy, came to me and said, John, Heather's over here. And so I went over down on where the bus had tipped over, and she was under the bus. Her head was right under the bus, face down, couldn't see anything but her back. And I sat there, and I still don't know how. I just think the spirit overcame me at that point, because I sat there and had a conversation with her, put my hand on her back, apologized for having her even being on that bus. But that was just an amazing experience, and then have to go to each bus and tell the kids what had happened. That was a hard thing. And we actually had a prayer on each bus. And then we got, they took the kids from that bus back to the Pocatello to the hospital. And it was funny because the head nurse there was one of my band students from Blackfoot when I taught there. And she just took care of us like I've never seen anything. She was there to take care of me, take care of all the kids. And the scary part that I really learned a lesson from was I didn't know who was all on that bus, because that close and so many parents up there, some of the kids had gone home with their parents. And we didn't have an accurate count. And I remember the sheriff asking me, do you have a list of who's on that bus? And I was embarrassed to say I did not. And it wasn't until the next morning, I think about 4 or 5, when they released us all to drive home, the sheriff came to me and said, John, we've just lifted the bus. There's no other students under that bus. And I can't tell you the feeling that was of relief. It was horrible to lose Heather, but it would have been even more tragic to lose some of the kids. But how we came out of that was a miracle. It was a miracle. When we came back to town, and we had a service that evening, which would have, I guess, would have been Sunday evening. I mean, the governor came down because he's a graduate of American Fork, and a few things were said, and it was just incredible. We had an amazing funeral. It was unbelievable. And then that Tuesday, we had a competition in BYU. And I just assumed, well, we're not going to do a competition. The kids all came to me and said, we want to do this in tribute to Heather. And I said, well, if you want to do it, we'll do it. So that Tuesday, I mean, the accident was on Saturday. On Tuesday, we were in the BYU Stadium. And our show was about the greatest generation, all about the people. And we had banners behind us, big flyer things that had pictures of kids' grandparents and anybody who had served in the war, that kind of a thing. And they turned around one at a time, the greatest generation kind of a thing. And it was my son that told me, he wasn't in the band at that time, but he was one of the band dad guys. He said, I can get a new banner made in Denver, and they can get over to you here by Tuesday with Heather's picture on it. So we put Heather's picture on the last one to turn around, and the color guard, the show was over. It was a big emotional moment. And then the color guard just flitted to the back with groups of flowers and laid it right at her picture.
Oh.
Now, the audience is what was amazing. There was no applause. There was just dead silence in the entire BYU Stadium of just emotion. You could hear people sobbing. Then when the kids went off the field, they were in tears. And then, everybody clapped and stuff like that. But it was just an experience that I will never forget. And then bringing the band together, and I remember a different bus company drove a bus there because these kids on bus, oh man, I can't remember, it was bus 2 or bus 3, bus 2. They didn't want to get on a bus again.
Yeah, I bet.
And so the bus pulled up, and we had some counselors from the school and everything, and we got them on the bus and said, sit in the same seats you were, if you can remember. And we talked about it all the way over. A local ice cream store gave us all free ice cream. We drove the kids to the ice cream store, and the counselors were talking to the kids all about it, what went on. And, it was just a healing experience. And then a few days later, a company from Utah Valley University, a bunch of counselors, came to the school and asked me if they could do this healing ceremony for us. I said, sure. Got all the kids out of school. I walk in the band room. They had big tower speakers set up, just booming loud music. I mean, upbeat music.
Huh.
I'm thinking, oh man, I'm not sure this is appropriate. But we went in there, and they would play some cool stuff, get the kids clapping, and it'd stop. And then they would sound something profound to them. Like, this is okay. You're going to get through this. You're going to be fine. And then they'd boom some more music again. And then at the very end, they had these little blocks of wood, and they wanted every kid to break it with a karate hit. He said, now we're going to do this. And there's about 6 stations, and all the kids lined up. And I said, now every single student's got to break through this. You got to break through the pain and the agony, and you can do it right here. And it came down to, there was like 3 little kids, 2 little girls that couldn't break the stupid board. But they kept teaching them and trying to get them to do it, and say, everybody can break through this pain that you're dealing with right now. And finally, they all 3 of them broke that little board. And I mean, the band just erupted, and things like that really, was soothing to the band. It was just a powerful moment. And she would have been my replacement if she had still been here. In fact, just last week, 2 weeks ago, I was judging up in the Mini Dome, and every time I come back down there, we always stop at the site, and I pull off the side of the road, and I just walk over there. And see the site, and there's still some bus glass and stuff, and some kids who put little tributes there and everything. But it's just a powerful thing that I'll never get over. And the kids they still remember. We still have their names up on the board in the band room today of the kids who are on that bus. So it was powerful. But she's missed. What really got me was the bands around America. Once they got word of what went on, we were flooded with cards, with posters, with flowers. Right behind me, I don't know if you can see this flower.
Yeah.
That's what I call my heather flower. It was one of them that was left there that could still grow. A lot of them were the kind you just throw away after a while. But when I retired, I said, any chance I can just take that flower and keep it going? And so they let me. So it was nice. But all the kids around, and that's why that next year, it was that very year, we were in St. George. And one of the school board members came up to me and said, man, I wish you could be in Granets this year. And I said, yeah, I do too. I wish I could too, just to thank the other people. And he said, well, do it.
I'd forgotten that.
And this is on a Saturday night.
Yes. You and I did a Jumbotron interview about that very thing, that you had like just a couple of days to turn around, put the whole band on the road.
A couple of days. I called up my tour guy that was doing all my tours and said, I need flights to Indy. And he was thinking I was talking about the year later. And I said, no, it's this Thursday, Tom Merrill.
Oh, yeah.
And he did it. He pulled it off. It was amazing.
Thank you for sharing that, John. I just thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
In this time that we're in, where there seem to be so many deep divisions, as long as we're talking about healing, do you think music and music education has a role in, and buddy, you know what? I've got Kleenex right here. I don't know if you've got some in your office.
I have some right here.
Do you think there's a role for music and music education in bringing us back together?
I don't think there's anything as powerful as music in this whole world. I mean, there's spiritual things and stuff like that, and that's another level. But music can heal, it can calm, it can fix things in people's lives in this country. I just love the feeling of music, and it doesn't have to be in a performance. It can be in a hall. My best experiences have been in a practice room where, I'll make a flute player cry or something because she feels the music. And I think the power of music is powerful. I still serve on some UMEA and NAFME kind of things, and I see what they're trying to do and move in that direction. And Bands of America and Music for All, wow, what they do is unbelievable. We have to keep music in the schools. Kids cannot go through life without at least being touched by music. I was in Washington, D.C. just this summer with the, what do they call it, Hill Day or something. We visited all our centers and stuff. I bet half of their aides were in music, either choir or works for a band. And they just bore their little, I call them bandemonies, but they were telling us how amazing it was and how it helped to get them into their positions then. But I can't even put into words the power that music has. I know when we all pass on to the next world, there's going to be music there. And it's going to be a powerful, and I'm hoping there's going to be some bands there too. But, but it's powerful.
I want to announce those shows.
That's right.
When they did the tribute for you in 2016 upon your retirement, at the very end, you spoke and you quoted our mutual friend, Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser. I don't know if you remember that quote, but it has to do with when you see something that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Can you finish that for me?
Yeah, do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you want to do it or not, and without being asked. I use that all the time with kids, with adults. I have some church responsibilities. I use that in spiritual settings. I used to, for the fun of it, I would throw a piece of a candy wrapper on the floor when we were selecting drum majors or section leaders, and I would just kind of watch. And the kids who stopped and picked it up. That's what Dr. Tim's preaching. I remember going to the summer symposium, and here he is running around serving, taking praise from kids and serving everybody. And that's just powerful. Do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you want to do it or not, and without being asked. If everybody in the world would do that, man, we'd be in a lot better place than we are right now.
John Miller, thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Retired American Fork High School band director and Bands of America Hall of Famer John Miller. This weekend, right here in the Alamo Dome, 70 Texas bands take the field again after many of them already made at least one, if not two, performances on this field this week at the Texas State Championships. Steel sharpens steel, and all of them should be roaring and ready to go at this weekend's last Super Regional of the year and our last BOA Regional of the year, too, in beautiful St. George, Utah. Break Ranks is presented in association with Outrun the Sun, Bands of America's Sun Safety Partner. I'm Dan Potter. Go for it. Break Ranks.